Hi all. So we are starting right on time. So I'm sure there's going to be more people that join in the next 5 to 10 minutes. So I'll just give a little introduction to start. My name's Grace. If you don't know me, I am the operations manager at the Dyslexia Association of London, a nonprofit that focuses on support and events for dyslexic adults in London. And today we have Jo Rees, who you might recognize if you attended our last conference, which hopefully will be going on next year. Our last conference, she spoke about her experience and also she's active on social media. So you might recognize her, and if not, you're in for a treat today. So I will hand it over to Jo Rees. She has something for you all that I'm going to send out after. Um, and also, the recording will be available, and I will send out all of our future events as well for you all. And the chat box is open, so if you have any questions, um, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to put them in there. I will be monitoring it the entire time. If there's anything urgent, I'll interrupt Jo to make sure she's aware. If not, I'll save it for the Q&A at the end. So thank you all. Feel free to be active in the chat box. And I'll hand it over to you, Jo.
Guys, thank you so much for joining us today. Now, I'm not going to lie, we just had a bit of a moment, didn't we, Grace, where I couldn't see my screen. But we're all good now, I think. So I'm gonna introduce myself just because some of you might not know me from last year. So I'm Jo. I'm the wrong side of 40 now. I'm closer to 50 than I am 40. I'm parent of three teenage children, happily married for a very long time. And I always feel like that's really relevant because actually my family are what has kind of helped me manage dyslexia really well. I am a late diagnosed dyslexic. I didn't get diagnosed with dyslexia until I was 34. I had absolutely no idea that I was experiencing dyslexia until I went off to train to become a specialist teacher with dyslexia at the age of 28. So I had done GCSEs, A levels, a degree, a teaching qualification. I've been a teacher for several years and literally had no clue that I was dyslexic. I just thought I wasn't very clever. I had was an average attainer. I wasn't a high attaining person. I kind of always kind of like did enough to just sort of scrape by. Um, and I was the first person in my family to go to university. So when I told my family I suspected I was dyslexic, there was a bit of, well, I don't think you can be dyslexic because you're the only one that's got a degree and you're really clever. And what I feel like I've done since I got my diagnosis of dyslexia, so when I got my diagnosis of dyslexia, I was still teaching in school. And what actually led me to get my diagnosis of dyslexia was the fact that my son was struggling. And I decided as a parent, I really needed to get my head around whether I was dyslexic or not. Because if I was dyslexic, I knew that I had the strategies to be able to support him. Not because I was a specialist teacher of dyslexia, but because I'd lived life and I had got a degree in things. And I thought, actually, if I've achieved what I've achieved and managed my dyslexia not knowing, imagine what he will be able to achieve knowing. And we'll come on to that in a minute. And at the time of my diagnosis, I was working in school and I was doing okay. I wasn't quite a senior leader, but I was a successful Senko. I had been a consultant for the local authority. We had been made redundant, but I'd gone back into school. I was doing okay on the outside, but I didn't feel confident on the inside. Now, it's really interesting because Grace asked me today if I could talk about, and I've actually had to write it down because I haven't got a presentation because I am going completely with my strengths, and I'm going to come to that in a minute. Grace has asked me to talk about reframing your mindset and unlocking your strengths. And I did exactly what I did last year when she gave me the title. And I freaked out and I spiraled and I went into imposter syndrome. And who am I to possibly talk about that? And I can't talk about that. And proof that even when you are super confident, you always have that self-doubt going on in your head. But I think what is particularly interesting about this title is that I am at a point in my life at the moment where I left education how many years ago, coming up to the 10th year for my business. And I am all over social media, and people say to me all the time, "You're everywhere, you're doing so well." I'm currently hosting a conference, arranging a conference that's being hosted on the Isle of Wight to support educational providers. But I don't mind sharing with you that actually, from a business perspective, it is not going well, or it wasn't going well. It's going better now. But this year, there have been some really tough lessons for me to learn, because I did a degree in dance drama in English. I then trained to become a primary school teacher. All of my education after that point, and I've done a lot of education after that point, I've done a lot of courses, a lot of that was education SEND related. So when I set up a business, I've got no knowledge of running a business. It's kind of what I'm learning on the go. I've got natural entrepreneurial strength, and we're going to come to that in a minute, okay? But I think what's really interesting is I began to doubt myself, and I began to doubt my ability. And what I've learned about being dyslexic is there's levels and there are layers to it. So just as you begin to think that you've got your head around it, it comes back and it bites you on the bottom. Now, what I've realized is it's not that it comes back and it bites you on the bottom because you're doing the same thing. It's because you have dared to be brave and you have pushed yourself out of your comfort zone. So I just want to spend, I sort of said to Grace, I was going to kind of actually try and make this sort of a practical workshop. So I'm actually going to get the chat box up, which I wouldn't ordinarily do because normally I'm not very good at reading and talking at the same time. But I kind of want to make this sort of a practical workshop. So I want you to let me know in the chat box, can you relate to that? That almost you've got to a point in your life where you feel like you've got on top of your dyslexia, and you've got a bit brave because you think you've got the strategies in place and it seems to be going really well, and you think that you're kind of cracking it, but you go to do something slightly differently, or you put yourself out there and dyslexia kind of comes and bites you on the bottom and reminds you that it's still there. So your immediate thought in your head is, oh my goodness, like, who am I to think that I can do that? Just let me know in the chat box if you can. And actually, I don't know if does that work, Grace? Can I see messages in the chat box? I'm just thinking,
Yes,
or
you
is it
should be
only,
able to
or
see.
is it the Q&A?
You should be able to see chats next to participant number, if you can see that.
Because it would just be good, where I can't see you, it would just be good to know if this is kind of, it says only hosts and panelists can see the questions.
Oh, wait, let me
So it
make
says
you.
that they're open, host and panelists. Oh no, chat box, I think it is
Okay.
working. Okay. So just know in the comments if you can kind of relate to that feeling of dyslexia kind of creeping up on you. And it kind of, because it would just be good to have kind of like a couple of examples or know that what I'm saying kind of resonates. Because when that happens, that is when the self-doubt becomes in, and that is when we really need to do the work on mindset. Because what I have discovered is, I can't see any questions or comments, so I'm just going to assume that there might be some there. What I've kind of noticed and discovered is that the thing that holds most people with dyslexia back isn't their intelligence and it isn't their literacy skill, it's their confidence. And it's confidence that is related to mindset. And the thing is, so often our confidence is related to our experiences. So if you've had negative experience after negative experience, then your confidence is going to be quite low. Your confidence is definitely going to be low with things that you find more difficult. But actually, when it comes to things that we enjoy or things that we are good at, we tend to be more confident. So I'm just going to have a look at this quote here. So yes, this has recently happened to me. I went back to studies, which I've done before, but this time around, combination with a new job has made my brain freeze with everything. Yeah. So we begin to question and doubt, like, who are we? Why do we think we need this qualification? Like, why do we think we need to up-level ourselves? And I can totally relate to this again. So I have just had to I've just had to renew my dyslexia assessment practicing certificate. So every 3 years, we have to submit a renewal to make sure that our practice is up to date, to make sure that we are continuing to develop our professional development, make sure that we're in line with current practice. And every year, every 3 years, I doubt my ability and I build it up to something that it isn't. And interestingly, I was sharing this with a fellow assessor back at the end of August with the lovely Louise Selby. And I was saying, I really need to renew it, but I'm too scared to even look at what I need to do because I just think it's going to be really overwhelming and I'm not going to be able to get my head around it. And what if I'm not good enough this time? What if I haven't done this? What if I haven't done that? And she listened to me talk for about 10 minutes and then she went, right, she said, I'm just going to stop you, she said, because while you've been ranting at me there, she said, you are catastrophizing. Like, it's never going to be as bad as you think it is. But she said, I can tell you that you have done everything you need to do. You just need to write it down. She said, I don't even need to look at the criteria to know that you've done it because I've seen what conferences you've been to. We've had professional conversations about the fact that the report format is changing. She said, you need to stop doubting yourself and you need to do it. She said, you've renewed more times than I have. She said, this is your 4th renewal. But because I know that my literacy skill needs to be at a certain level, because I know that, actually renewing that taps into more of my weaknesses than it does my strength, I begin to doubt myself. So my mindset almost shuts down. So I think that kind of has led me to think in a lot of detail about kind of what is the difference. So I'm doubting myself because I'm doubting myself with my report. I'm doubting myself because I feel like I'm not a successful businesswoman because I've kind of made some not even poor decisions, in uninformed decisions, I guess, if you like. But then I reminded myself, I've never run a business before. I've got no qualifications in running a business. I didn't even take a GCSE or an A level in business. Like everything I have learned, I've kind of learned on the fly. And how do we learn? We learn by making mistakes. And again, the mistakes aren't the issue. So when we make a mistake is not the issue. The issue is having the resilience and the confidence to be able to rise from that mistake. Because actually, mistakes, as long as we're not constantly making the same mistake over and over and over again, mistakes are great. Mistakes are how we learn. And actually, dyslexic brains learn really well from mistakes because we're trialing and erroring and we're finding out what works for us, what doesn't work for us. And it's connecting to that big picture thinking that we knew, that we rely on kind of really heavily as dyslexics. You know, it's cliche big picture thinking, but what we're actually meaning by that is we ask lots of questions. And the reason why we ask lots of questions is because we link that new learning to the learning in our brain. It supports our processing, it supports our working memory, and it helps us make sense of new kind of information. So actually, mistakes, again, it comes back to confidence. You're not going to tell me that Richard Branson has never made a poor business decision in his life, and look at where he is now. Like, the difference is he has the confidence. I don't even think it's about money. I think it's about having the confidence to know that actually you are worthy, you have got the skills, and you need to move forward. So I'm just going to have a look at these comments again now. So totally relate. This happens. Great comments. Thank you so much for sharing. I'm really appreciating it. This happens with every new role. My brain goes into overload fatigue, takes more time to settle into new roles, makes me feel very inadequate. Yeah. So you need to understand when we start something new, there is huge strain on our working memory because it's not automatic yet. So there's going to be new system, new processes, new people, new language, new vocabulary, new routines to learn. And all of those things put huge strain on our working memory. And when we have got strain on our working memory, we are less efficient and we are likely to make more mistakes. We just need to remind ourselves that actually, when we are starting something new, there will always be a period of adjustment. And as long as we're not making those same mistakes 6 weeks later, it's okay. It doesn't mean we're incapable. It just means that we're pushing ourselves out of our comfort zone. And I'm going to come back to my notes I've got here for a minute, because I've got comfort zone. And I do appreciate I'm jumping around a bit with this because I've got no presentation to kind of tie me down. But when Grace gave me that title, Reframing a Dyslexic Mindset and Unlocking Strengths, last year I emailed her and I was like, I can't do that title. I need to do a different title. Can I give you the title? I didn't do that this year because actually I've realized that the panicking, Grace, is slightly pushing me out of my comfort zone. That title kind of makes me look at things differently and pushes me very slightly away from talking about something I would potentially feel really comfortable talking about. It's pushing me to talk about something from a slightly different perspective, a slightly different angle. But how do we grow? We grow when we do things slightly differently. So I didn't ask for a different title this year. I stuck with that one because actually I recognized that it was digging into the imposter. The imposter is always there. It doesn't go away. I quelled that imposter and was like, no, I can do this. And actually that uncomfortable feeling that I was feeling has got nothing to do with not being able to do it. It's got nothing to do with blagging it, because I can talk about this standing on my head. I talk about it all the time. I've lived it. I've breathed it. I mentor and coach people with it. It's just tapping into that insecurity of, have you got enough confidence to kind of hold your ground and go with it? So I didn't change my title, because I was like, actually, I can talk to you about this. I know exactly what I'm talking about. And I have intentionally not done a presentation, right? And the reason why I intentionally haven't done a presentation is, let's be honest, who looks back at presentations afterwards? And I'm really sorry if you do look back at presentations afterwards. I can maybe send you my crib sheet of notes if you do. But actually, what happens is as a dyslexic person, I end up over delivering, because I want that presentation to look perfect. And even though I proofread it within an inch of its life, there's always typos. I totally over deliver because I'm like, oh my goodness, have I got enough slides? Have I got enough content? And actually, what happens is by the time I come to delivering the presentation, I'm already exhausted. And one of my one-to-one clients at the moment, we've been talking about really embracing difference. So again, confidence comes from doing things. We do things differently as dyslexics, and often we lack the confidence to be able to do things differently. And one of my one-to-one clients recently, we were talking about, she runs a really successful business and she communicates largely via email. However, most of her clients are neurodivergent, and most of them actually communicate better through voice note. And there was a bit of a misunderstanding through an email, and she spent such a long time writing this email, and the tone of the email had been interpreted by the other person, not how she had meant it to be interpreted. And I just said to her, why did you not just fire her a voice note? And she said to me, because I'm a business owner, and because surely I should do everything by emails. And I was like, but that is society's perception of how we run a business. And actually, by complying and trying to do things the same way as everybody else, that is when it all goes wrong. It's that comparison of, they're doing it that way, so therefore that must be the right way to do it. Who says there is a right and a wrong way to communicate with your clients? When we're independent business owners and we're entrepreneurs, we have the privilege of being able to choose how we communicate with people. And actually, when we're in a workplace, we need to feel more empowered. And even though, yes, we do need email trails and things, there is so much more that you could be doing if you had the confidence to stand up for yourself and integrate the accessibility support so that you are more efficient. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, we want to be efficient. And I felt that by not providing a really clear presentation, I would be able to get my point across in a much more articulate way without over delivering and support you in understanding strengths a bit more. So there are, however, times when I still see people doing things and I get that sick feeling in my gut. So let me know if you ever get that sick feeling in your gut. And I'm going to have a look back at some of these comments in a minute. Thank you so much for sharing. It's really helpful. It helps me know that I am on the right track. When you are kind of in your own lane, so when you are in a work, whether you're in a workplace or whether you're doing something yourself, and you start to do it your way, but then you kind of look up and you notice that somebody is doing it differently to you, they're more efficient than you, and you almost get that sick feeling in your stomach that I'm not good enough, I'm not clever enough, am I doing it right? Maybe you even, the self-talk in your head is even that I do it wrong. I'm doing it wrong. And I've just had that feeling. So you'll know on here that I'm really good friends with Natalie from Adult Dyslexia. And it's really ridiculous because we are really good friends and we really champion each other. But often her content will come up and it will have more views than I've got. Or, yes, that sick feeling is worst for sure. Or she'll have said something more articulately than me. And I have to kind of switch it off because I'm like that, oh my goodness, that has like tapped into something that it's like a real insecurity of what if I'm doing it wrong, I'm not doing it right, I'm not doing a good enough job. And now I have to give myself like a really big kind of like talking to that actually don't be ridiculous. Like I'm doing things my way and my way is good enough. My way is right. I'm doing things in the way that's right for me. If I try and do them in the way she's doing things, that's not authentic. That's not who I am. And actually that's when it's going to go wrong. So the next word I want you to write down, I guess, or really kind of that I would have put on a slide is trust. Like, how much do you trust yourself? How much do you trust that your way of doing things is the right way of doing things? Because again, how confident are you that you trust yourself? So yesterday, I'm doing something called the Dyslexia Accelerator Pack over October, and you're welcome to join that if you want to. But I decided that for 31 days across Dyslexia Awareness Month, for 31 days, I would create a pop-up product where I would share every day a strategy, tip, hack, lesson on how dyslexia was showing up for me. So sometimes it's a lesson of something I've learned in the past, but sometimes it's very much an in the moment. This is how I'm dealing with dyslexia right now. And there are guides, there are handouts, there are all sorts of things in there. And as I shared with you earlier, business is tricky at the moment. I'm spinning an awful lot of plates. And yesterday I went into a provision and I did exam access arrangements. And some of the reason why it's tricky is because you'll know if you're independent business owners, we wear and we own a lot of hats. And one of the things I do is exam access arrangements, a really small part of what I do, but I love it. So I blocked out a whole day yesterday to go into a provision and do exam access arrangements. And for whatever reason, it only took 2 hours. There was a lot of illness and there weren't as many children as I thought that we needed to see. So it only took 2 hours. Yesterday, it was a beautiful day on the Isle of Wight. I was on a part of the island that I'm not normally on. And I've been in a room seeing kids back to back for like 2.5 hours. I got up really early and I'd cleared all of my emails. I knew that I had lots of reports to get out, lots of work to do. So I thought I've got a choice. I'm somewhere where I'm not normally am, where they've got a really lovely beach. The sun is shining. I could go for a walk for just 45 minutes and enjoy that moment. Or I could go home and I could work on that to-do list and then feel really miserable because I've missed the sunshine and just feel like super stressed. So I made the decision that I would go for the walk because I trusted that there was enough time for me to do what needed to be done. And I trusted myself that actually I can make decisions like that sometimes because I am my own boss. And actually prioritizing my well-being is really important, because if we're not in a good headspace with our mindset mentally, that's not going to make us efficient or productive when we work. And one of the things that I find is I quite often don't prioritize movement. I don't prioritize fresh air because I feel like, well, I haven't worked hard enough if I haven't ticked everything off my to-do list. So I made the decision to go for a walk, created a video, posted it in the little Dyslexia Accelerator saying, this is me, showing you, modeling to you that I am making a really difficult decision, that actually I'm not going back to do that to-do list straight away. I'm going to prioritize my mental health. And if I don't get everything done on that to-do list today, that is okay, because this 45 minutes right here, right now, is looking after me because I am worth it. And actually, if I want to function at my optimum, I I need to be moving. I need fresh air. I need to be fit. I need to be healthy. So I did set an alarm, because I do tend to get lost when the sun is shining and I'm on a beach collecting sea glass. So I did set an alarm, but I gave myself like 45 minutes, and I came home, and I can't lie, I completed my to-do list and more, because I felt so happy because I'd given myself that time. I'd done really well with the exam access arrangements in the morning, and my head was in a really good place because I'd prioritized myself. So actually, trusting ourselves and our gut is really, really important. So the other thing that I want to just share with you is I had a really interesting conversation with my son last night, who's 20. And we were talking about confidence, and I was sharing some of what I'm talking to you about now with him, because his mindset and his confidence is off. It's not off the scale. It's off the scale compared to mine, because obviously he isn't invincible, and he isn't big-headed, but he knows his worth and he knows his value, and he plays to his strengths all the time. And we're going to do a little exercise in a minute. So make sure you've got some paper and stuff in front of you. And I was chatting to him about, why do you think that dyslexia doesn't bother you? Because it doesn't bother him, and it doesn't bother his middle sister. It bothers our youngest. He's just signed up for an open university degree, and she has just started a degree, and neither of them ticked the DSA box. And I was just like, we can get assessments if you want accessibility stuff. And they were like, we don't need it. If there are exams on our courses and we need extra time, and they won't give us extra time without it, we will of course tick that box. But you know what, Mum? We're good. We feel like we've got it. And I was talking to him about, why is it that he feels like he's so comfortable with it? And he said to me, because, Mum, it's never been an issue. You've never made dyslexia about what I can't do. It's always been about what I can do. He said, and yes, I've got weaknesses and I struggle with my literacy skill, but that has never stopped me. And he has got his literacy skill is not strong. Yes, he can read and he can write to a point, but on a standardized test, it would be below average. I can tell you that now. Like, he's got functional literacy skill. He relies heavily on technology to support him, and he won't mind me sharing that with you in this small group of people. And my literacy skill's not great. My spelling would be well below average if I was to do an actual test, for sure. I rely heavily on technology and on my proofreader, and I've also worked really hard to improve my literacy skill. But he said, the only thing I can think is, because you kind of like created this growth mindset and do attitude in me from such an early age. I don't have the baggage to unpick that some of the adults that you work with have to unpick, because adults that I work with often have so many what we call fake stories. So when I mentor and work with people one-to-one in my Rebel Up program, one of the modules is we really dig deep into their mindset, and we kind of unpick and work out which stories are fake and which ones are real, which ones are we believing because society tells us, has made us believe that that's true, and which story is actually true. And he said, the only thing I can think is that you've just done a really good job of just creating a mindset in me that dyslexia has never been about what I can't do. And you'll know I get quite heated when dyslexia is a superpower. it, to me, it will never be a superpower, and I appreciate for some people they view it like that. And if you want to go check out a really interesting post debating that, Michelle Patterson on LinkedIn, she is the head teacher of Moon Hall School, just specialist dyslexia school, and she posted a great post this week where, so all of the students in her school are dyslexic, and they did a survey whether they thought it was a superpower or not, and it was really divided. It was 50-50. And the conclusion that I've come to is that if you if your dyslexia has been supported, when you actually unpick a bit deeper people that think that dyslexia is a superpower, it's because they know what their strengths are. Basically, and if you know what your strengths are, you can thrive. People that don't think it's a superpower, their mindset and their head is not properly around dyslexia, and they're still in the struggle. And I posted something on social media yesterday, actually, and apologies, I keep referring to social media, but I just feel like it's the easiest way to explain it. The only thing that is stood between dyslexic struggle and dyslexic thriving is confidence. That's the only difference. It's as simple as that. Like, if you can nail your confidence, that is the most important thing. So this is quite ironic. So I said to Grace, I'll only be half an hour. And she was like, and she said, that's okay. And I said, but wait, when I get talking, I'll probably be longer than that. And we're already at half an hour. But I am going to stop talking for a minute because I do want you to do like a real time task now. I am going to give you a minute. So hopefully you've got a piece of paper there. And I'm actually going to do this as well with you. Okay. I am going to give you a minute, and I want you to write down as many weaknesses as you can. So, as many weaknesses, as many things that you think you're not good at, you're going to have a minute to write down as many as you can. You don't have to put them in the chat box at the moment. Just write them down on a piece of paper in front of you on your phone. Tally them if you haven't got that, but I'm going to give you a minute, and I'm actually gonna time. Okay, we've got a minute to write down as many weaknesses as we can. Okay, off we go. Okay, that's a minute up. That's a minute up. So I have got 10 weaknesses on my list, and I'm just going to read mine out. You don't need to write your weaknesses, but it would just be really helpful to know how many weaknesses did you identify in that? How many have you written down? Just write the number down. So for me, it was 10. You write the number down for me in the chat box, and I will read mine. I will read mine out that I'd written down. So I'd written spelling, pronunciation. Sometimes I can't pronounce words. I use the wrong word. I really struggle with my accounts. There's always typos, even though I kind of try and proofread. I can't proofread. Impulsivity, disorganization. I'm last minute. I don't read things properly. I often don't listen, and I struggle to retain information. That's actually 11, I think. Okay, so now we're going to do the same, but I want you to list your strengths. Okay, so are you ready? Go. Okay, stop. Okay, just be really interested to know how many strengths could you list in a minute? Okay, so interesting then. Interesting. So did anybody have more weaknesses than strengths? Because often we tend to go, it's much easier to think of weaknesses than it is strengths. Now, interestingly, I've just come up with 16 strengths. And the reason why I can come up with strengths really easily is because I play to my strengths all the time and I know what they are. And I'm going to read my strengths out to you. All right. I'm going to be brave. I'm going to read them out to you. And I want to know, as I read them out to you, I want you to, if you feel brave enough, to just write in the comments, what do you think what do you think of the strengths that I'm listing? Yeah. What's your initial thoughts when you hear what I view as my strengths? Okay, so I'm going to read them out. So, got great empathy. I'm really good at talking to people. I'm kind. I'm inspirational. I'm creative. I love life and I make the most of every day. I'm friendly. I care about people. I'm passionate about making a difference. I am driven. Can't even read my own writing on that one there. Hang on. Oh, I'm determined. I'm a great mum. I'm a really good listener. I love singing. I'm good at music. I'm good at setting myself challenges and smashing them. Okay, those were the strengths that I wrote down. Anybody got any feelings or thoughts on those strengths that I've listed? Be interested to know your thoughts. Because I did this exercise with one of my one-to-one clients not long ago. And actually, this is my inspiration now. I'm posting this as going in the accelerator today. This is the activity for today. And her initial thought was, well, but those strengths don't matter. Those strengths don't matter because they're not measured. Like, how can you, human strengths? Yes, human strength. But those human strengths, those human skills are not measured at school, are they? In education, where is there any opportunity for us to use any of those strengths? And if we do use those strengths are wrapped up in literacy skill, right? And what happens is we end up not valuing those strengths because, well, those strengths don't have an academic qualification attached to them, and those strengths are not knowledge based. Like, how can you build a business on those strengths? Like, how do they help you in life? Well, as you've all said there, they're human strengths, and actually they're really important life skills. They're critical skills. And actually, if we can identify our strengths and come across as a leader, yeah, maybe, yeah. See, and again, sometimes we can't see the strengths that are right in front of us. Like, sometimes literally we cannot see the strengths that are right in front of us. And you see, I would never say, Liam, that's really interesting, because I would say that I'm not a good leader because of the experience that I'd had in education. And because I was told that I talked too much, that I wore my heart on my sleeve, and that actually I couldn't be a good leader because I thought with my emotions, because I'm very emotionally literate. That's another one of my strengths. And that I cared too much. And because I cared too much, there was no way I could be a good school leader. That was the feedback that I got in one of my deputy headship interviews. And I was just in the wrong job, actually. And I think you probably can be those things if you're in the right school. But I think it's really interesting because we've all got strengths. They're all there. It's just we don't value them. And actually, I think one of the things that's really interesting is, going back to the conversation I had with my son, which is really relevant, is that we use the things that he really enjoyed to develop the literacy skill. And actually, when you've got purpose and passion, The literacy skill will follow. All right. I mean, look at me. I'm a dyslexia assessor for a living, for goodness sake, and I produce great big dyslexic reports. I can't bear producing those reports, but actually I know the difference that they'll make. So therefore, I've got a purpose and I'm driven because I'm determined, because I'm passionate, because I want to make a difference. That report has got a purpose because it's going to empower somebody. When it comes to doing the training, I love what I do. I love that I can empower people in that way. Gives me a purpose to be able to do that training. Gives me a reason to put myself through that pain of renewing my practicing certificate. Because actually, if I didn't have that certificate, so many people that I can't help, because actually my strength of helping people thrive and seeing things in people that they don't see in themselves, I wouldn't be able to do that with people if I couldn't identify their dyslexia. So that's a little exercise and something that I want you to really consider. And I have actually sent you a couple of the formats. So Grace will email it out afterwards in case you want to do that exercise again. Like I said, I'm going to post it in the accelerator today. Or if you want to do it with other people that you're working with. The other thing which I think would be really interesting, which I've just literally thought of now off the top of my head, is it might be quite interesting to ask somebody really close to you to complete that for you. Like, what do you see as my weaknesses and what do you see as my strengths, and compare them. That might be quite an interesting exercise to do for sure. But basically, I think I can open the floor to questions now, because unlocking our strength, if I'm really honest, is about tapping into your mindset and being confident. It's having the confidence to know what your strengths are. I should trademark it, shouldn't I, Grace? To know what your strengths are, but use them confidently. And this then leads me back to kind of what I was alluding to earlier, that different is good enough and different is right for you. Because so often we're scared to use our strengths because we think that they're not valuable. We think that they don't matter. And actually, our strengths are what make us us, and they're what set us apart. Now, I don't mean that because I'm going to come back to the superpower thing, and let me share with you why I hate the term superpower. Because the term superpower alludes that we're superhuman, and nobody is superhuman. And actually, I called my husband out recently because he came in from work, and he came home and he was just like, "Oh, you've done X, Y, and Z. You've done everything on the to-do list, and you've sorted the house out. You're superwoman. You know, you're our superwoman." And I went, no, stop calling me superwoman, because I've got brains in my head, feet in my shoes, as Dr. Zeus would say. I keep quoting this at the moment. How I choose to spend my time and steer myself is the action that I choose to make. I am no more capable than you are. We have all got the same, well, different skills, but we are all capable. It's how we choose to apply ourselves and how we choose to move ourselves forward. But I think sometimes fear of being judged for doing things in the way that works for us, that holds us back. And again, that comes back to confidence, the confidence to just embrace life and do things the way that you want to do them. So hopefully that little me rambling for 45 minutes, having no presentation, because why do I need to hide behind a presentation to help you unlock your strengths? Hopefully that little workshop masterclass that is gold has helped you kind of tap into some of your strengths. Please feel free to ask questions. I am just going to do a small little plug here that if you don't follow me already, please do go and find me on at Dyslexic Life of Jo Rees. I'm on most platforms at Dyslexic Life of Jo Rees. LinkedIn, I'm just Jo Rees, because at Dyslexic Life of Jo Rees felt a bit unprofessional. But actually, I do wonder after this, I might actually go back and change my name to that. As I'm trying really hard to kind of like show up as me everywhere. But also I have written a book called Don't Forget to Smile, which is my memoir, which you can get on Amazon. I'm actually currently writing a third book on navigating the education system as a parent with dyslexia. I'm moving a lot into parenting at the moment, and talking about parenting and a lot of working with adults. Also, do check out the Dyslexia Accelerator. The link for that is in my bios everywhere. And like some of my kind of paid mentoring offerings, I'm moving into that at the moment. And the results are pretty spectacular. I'm not going to lie in terms of supporting and helping people move forward. So please do check me out over there. But I really do hope that that is helpful. Please do let me know if you have got any questions or comments in the comments. If not, that's it from me today.
Great, thank you so much, Jo. I don't think we have any questions, but I guess that makes sense because it's so individualized. So thanks so much for having this personalized session. I put in the chat the links to your Instagram, to your LinkedIn, and also where everyone can buy your book. So that would be great for everyone to connect with you more after this. Everyone who's on here, I'm going to send you something that Jo sent me to share after to kind of keep up this work. And I'll share the links to her Instagram, LinkedIn, and book as well, so that you have that as well after. Okay, great. Well, thank you so much, Jo, for volunteering your time and being with us today. Um, really love everything that you did. Um, Oh, here's a question. Thank you, Mia. I heard that being dyslexic can mean that we can be better at problem solving because we can see the links between things that non-dyslexic people miss. Is there anything else like that?
Not that I can particularly think of off the top of my head, but I think it is, dyslexics view things differently from each other. And the reason for that, I think, is because of processing, which is a blessing and a curse. Because processing, and I have got qualifications in dyslexia, but I can't use posh terminology, so I'm just going to use layman's terms. So processing is basically just filing and moving information around in our heads. And what happens with dyslexic brains, because of the way we process information and because of a weakness with working memory, what tends to happen is that information tends to sort of almost be scattered and thrown around, not necessarily in what we would call a logical way. So when we make links and we make connections, we connect new learning to prior learning. So depending on your experiences and how you understand something will depend where you kind of link that new learning. So I think that's why often we see things differently, because we are not necessarily making connections in a logical way. And it's almost that not being able to make connections in a logical way, which can sometimes be really helpful because that helps us to notice what we can't see. Something else that I think many dyslexic people have in common is they're often very emotionally literate and good at reading the unsaid. Because often I will not process what somebody is saying in a busy, noisy environment, but I can tell you the sad person, I can tell you the person that's not really interested because I'm looking at their body language, I'm looking at their facial expression. So I would say that's something else that we tend to be quite good at. We tend to be very emotionally literate and good at kind of unpicking and working out when somebody isn't okay. What does Liam say? I totally forgotten to my strengths after studying full time for a year. Good. I'm really glad. And get those strengths to the forefront, Liam, of what you do every single day. That is how we grow a strength. We focus on it. And it's interestingly, if I'd have done that exercise with you, probably even a year ago, I would have had way more strengths than weaknesses. I actually find it really difficult to think of my strengths. To think of my weaknesses, if I'm really honest, because I'm so used to focusing on my strengths and what I can do, I've kind of forgotten about my weaknesses. Because we get more of what we focus on. If you believe in manifestation and you're woo from that point of view, which I am to a point, we get more of what we focus on. So the more we focus on what we can do, the more irrelevant our weaknesses become. So yeah, hopefully that answers those questions.
Great. Thank you so much, Jo. And thank you everyone for coming and engaging. And yes, I'll be sending something else out soon. And don't forget to follow Jo on socials and get her book. So thank you again, Jo, so much.
Okay,
We'll be in touch, and I hope to see everyone else soon at our upcoming events. Thank you
take care. See you
all.
later.
Have a good
Bye. See you
one.
later. Bye.
Bye.
Ah,
Good feedback.
yeah.
Thank you, Liam.
Yeah, well, maybe we should have done that for the questions at the end, shouldn't we? Actually, making
Yeah.
dyslexic people type.
Good feedback. Thank you. All right, have a
Yeah.
good one, Joe.
See you later. Bye.
Bye.